we thought that why don't we do a system where we go deep down the ground where most of the poor people live. And as soon as we reached to the poor people, we realized that the poor is extremely rich and the rich is extremely poor, both in terms of knowledge and both in terms of dedication, both in terms of giving attitude, both in terms of even deep knowledge of anything. The more poor people you go, you will find that they are highly knowledgeable, they are extremely wisdom oriented. All they don't have is money, or which is an acquired asset. And every rich people you meet, you will find that they are insecure, they are possessive, they are acquisition oriented, and they're extremely poor in terms of giving attitude. So I realized that the poverty of the rich and the richness of poverty is mismatched, and then but I was feeling like the inner being. I always used to feel extremely happy when I am with the people at the ground in the villages and so-called poor people. Always, maybe because of the open air, maybe because of their openness, maybe because they are not prepared to talk, but they just talk what they know, and they're not unwelcome. Whenever you go, you meet them, the first thing is, would you like to have something, sit here and all that. And the more upper you keep on going, and you'll find, did you take appointment, how did you come, how did you knock the door, and so on and so forth. So this is very interesting. And everybody who is on the ground is a producer, and everybody who is on the top is a consumer. And consumer thinks they are knowledgeable, and actually the people who can produce is the highest level of knowledge. You cannot produce without having a knowledge. It's as simple as that. Whether it's a food or a farming or a wood or anything, the producer is the most knowledgeable person. But we created a system or a knowledge system or an information system or a class system in such a way that those who are producer are the poorest. Whether you are a farming producer or you are a vegetable producer or you are a work producer or you are a weaver, or everybody who is a producer is poor.
Osama, I think really you said something that pretty much encapsulates what I feel about all my work, that I feel enriched by all the places that I travel to. Not at all, never feel that I am in any way contributing to their life, to their society, to the way they view one another, to the way they view us, to the way they view the larger world. I have never felt that I am contributing anything to them. Of course, I do sometimes feel that their stories need to go to others who are not able to visit them. But the places that I go to, I feel so enriched. And that really, Osama, you said it so well, like literally half a sentence, and pretty much encapsulates how I feel about all these last few years of my journalism when I've been focusing entirely on rural India. This is a family of a patil. A patil in Maharashtra is an upper caste Maratha landowning family. In some villages, the patils are still considered the leaders of the village. And they've always been a landowning caste. And in pre-independence, they often owned hundreds of acres of land. And this gentleman, Satish Ghadge Patil, of a village that I visited repeatedly in the course between 2012 and 2020, they told me that they had elephants and horses in their family about 3 generations prior, that their forefathers were known to have walked around the village riding an elephant. And they'd had 200 acres or 250 acres of land at some point of time, and they'd lost all of that land to the land ceiling law. And then subsequently, they lost some more land because, just farming changes, globalization comes in, they're not able to keep up. The kinds of people who are doing work that is productive is changing in the village. And so they've pretty much lost everything. And this gentleman, he now, from having owned horses and elephants, this gentleman now works for 7,000 or 8,000 rupees per month as a lineman. He's a BSNL lineman. this kind of story can only be hallucinated by AI, and even hallucinated, it cannot be done so well. There's just no way that this kind of account can come without having actually. Can you move to the next slide? Without actually going to this place.
We had the whole curriculum, and we realized that in the span of 3 to 6 months, the kids and the community never opened those curriculum to learn, or our coordinators or the teachers never used that one because it was just not practical. So how did they learn? They learn with peer learning, learn with each other. They learned by sometimes as caricatures, in the sense that the keyboard, they didn't know ABCD, and they somebody opened YouTube or any website, and they remembered that these 5 letter will open this Pandora's box, and this 6 letter will open this kind of thing. If you click this, you will open this one, and then one will open, one will browse, one will type, one will. So this peer learning was very, very interesting. We usually found that whenever you go to one desk or any computer, one girl is holding the mouse, another girl is typing, the third one is putting the finger on the screen, ye niche karo, ye upar karo, and things like that. And this is not the one. And the fourth thing is that most of the learning happened through entertainment. By watching videos, by playing around, that also we learned that you need to give the equipment or the instrument or things in the hand of the people and just forget it. Don't try to teach anything. In fact, they can teach you ultimately how you can, what should be your curriculum, how it should be made, and things like that.
So what's happening right now is that because all of Marathwada's workers are looking for better paying sugarcane harvest work outside of Maharashtra or outside of Marathwada, Marathwada sugarcane, which has also grown tremendously in the last 15-20 years, despite being a very water scarce region, someone from outside has to come to cut cane here. And who are those people? Those who are much more deprived than the people from Marathwada who are going away. So there are even more deprived, even more marginalized communities, and they tend to be Adivasi communities from places like Chhattisgarh, from places like Vidarbha, some places like Madhya Pradesh, who are working in these almost bonded labor kind of situations on sugarcane farms, cutting cane for very, very, very small sums of money. Even 1 lakh rupees as an advance for 6 months of work or 5 months of work for a couple seems so wrong, right? And what if I tell you that the family that I just spoke to, these 2 little girls were raped because they're 10 and 12 or 10 and 13, and they were walking back after serving lunch to their family in the field, and they were coming back to the camp, and 2 men accosted them because they knew what their daily routines were, and they were accosted and they were raped. The first time I visited them, the family told me that they got help registering the FIR from their contractors. It took me 3 or 4 visits to find out that there is a power dynamic between the labor contractor and this family also. Particularly because they're an Adivasi family. Also, they're Gonds, they're again a PTG. They come from an extremely marginalized part of Chhattisgarh. And for them to speak up to me required the presence of the contractor. And when they finally realized that it was okay to speak to me without the contractor around, that is when I was able to get a conversation with them that didn't have constant surveillance. So those power dynamics are not things that you can possibly understand without going back, whether you're building trust with them, whether you're wanting to understand the complexity, whether you are able to render your own humility to them in a way that they accept and trust. Those are the essential differences that come by going back and doing it.
Unless you have a community take full ownership of whatever intervention that is being created, it won't be sustainable. And that was a learning. So usually when you are working in this mode of getting funding, getting investment, it's one time and for some period of time and all that. So you need to figure out that how do you make it more hyper local and yet acceptable and yet run it. So even though the center was running locally, but there was a sense of outside people and inside people kind of linkages. It's something like we were coming from town with a technology and with an idea They accept that it is empowering, but it is not us, it is not ours or something like that. You could figure out. And by the time you think it's ours, you also struggle with this one, is that who will run it then? And if you run it, then are you paid for it? And then if you are not paid for it, then who will how will they sustain it, or how you'll convert the public access point or any system payable, or use by paying and things like that. So there are a lot of learning on those things that came in between, which actually helped us to create models which is not top down but bottom up, and more circular, more adaptable, more coming from the people, and more owned by the people.
It's not technology, it's not AI alone that is kind of changing that's changing how journalism is being done, including rural journalism, immersive work, etc. There are some models that we have that we should be experimenting with, but no one's really thinking about it. The role of the journalist itself, very fundamentally speaking, as a journalist, my role is to be the relayer, or like a conduit, the middle woman. And I think that never before in history has that role itself been put into question. Look at the number of YouTube channels that are run by people in rural India telling their stories themselves. Look at the number of Instagram channels that have much larger followings than I can ever hope to build. Much larger number of views for each of their videos. I follow a gentleman called Lakshman Chauhan. I invite you all to follow him on Instagram. He has 2.2 million followers. And he's a brick kiln worker. And over the last 2 years, I have seen how he was moved from he's a migrant worker at the brick kilns, and he has now managed to go back home to his village in Bihar, and he's building a little house for himself. This is riveting stuff. I cannot produce that stuff because I'm not living that life. He's living that life, and he's able to produce that content, and he's able to send it directly to the viewer. There's a thing called brick kiln reels. I didn't know this thing existed. You just search on Instagram for brick kiln reels, and you'll see on Insta that I watched one that has 3.5 or 3.1 or 3.2 million views. There now, so it's become such a popular thing that there's now digital influencers from the nearby towns, the small tier 2 towns, etc., who are taking their drones and going to the brick kilns to shoot footage of brick kilns, because they suddenly hit upon this idea that, hey, it looks like some brick kiln worker is getting 2 million views for his Insta reel, so let me see what I can do as well, because I live nearby. Let me go there with my drone and get some footage. I saw one that has, again, like some millions of views. I saw a woman just scrolling through these rural India videos on Instagram. I saw a woman wearing a sari. Her palla is on her head, and she's probably some kind of a digital creator, and she's sitting in a field with her husband in a farm with her husband, and her husband is sitting on the floor, and she's speaking in English, perfectly good English, and she's saying, I'm in my field today and we are irrigating our land today, and here's my husband, he's eating bati chokha, and I've served it to him on a banana leaf. That's it. That's the entire reel. It's 30 seconds, 1.4 million views. I cannot hope to get that kind of viewership in my entire life. So rural India is getting better and better at telling their own stories. So they're not just changing, technology is not just changing the structure of journalism. Technology is taking the journalist out of the picture entirely. And so now I'm thinking about what is it that my role is. I genuinely feel that my role should be to find a way for those stories to have more context and not to interfere in their storytelling process at all, but to find a way to channel it in a way that is contextual, and also to see what we can do to prevent a lot of that content also from being reduced to slop in the near future.
The whole platformization business, everybody thinks that platformization is the only way to solve all our problems. But that is also, according to me, is gradually going to create more slavery, So everybody is giving data on one platform, and the platform controls you, it's very interesting is that, we have created a different kind of value system in the last 40-50 years. And those value systems is actually pushing technology as a primary driver of value systems. And then we all are, consumers of value system, you know. So yes, even though we are the equal content producers, but here we are working more on our time off screen or the time on screen. How can we have a digital detox time and things like that? And in rural areas, how you see the same youth with a mobile, ऐसे बैठ के घंटों वीडियो देख रहा है और कुछ नहीं कर रहा है, and basically using the money of his parents and watching YouTube and all that, and not really be useful to the family or earning money or taking responsibility. So the person is actually completely a consumer and not a producer. So एंड देन जो प्रोड्यूसर है वो कंटेंट प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, वो फिर लाइक्स के लिए और रील्स के लिए सर नीचे करके पैर ऊपर भी कर देगा, कुछ भी करेगा, एंड जस्ट टू गेट मैक्सिमम व्यूज एंड ऑल दैट. सो वहां पर भी you will see that how the value system is actually guiding you and all that. So it's a deeper conversation and longer conversation, but what I'm actually trying to see is that in one line, the world is moving more as a consumer and less as a citizen. So the citizenship gives you an ability to, take responsibility and accountability. Consumerism does not.